everybody. Alright, since nobody's in here, this will be the perfect time to do some audio testing, which I need to do because I've moved the mic. Hopefully, I put the mic a little bit more like overhead. That should hopefully fix some of the issues we've had in the past. Not off to a good start here. Whoops. Alright, there we go. Just, oh, behave now. Dadgummit. There we go. Alright. Let's go ahead and start with it here. That's better. Okay. So, go ahead and test out a few items. Go ahead and start with the zero tune. See how this goes while we wait for the regular crowd to shuffle in, as it were. Okay, it's pretty decent. I feel like it's a little on the quiet side, but it doesn't sound nearly as harsh, I don't think. So, you know, let's just say I'm talking a little bit louder like this to see how it sounds. Boost the audio just a touch. I think we'll turn gain filter up just a little bit more to 12. And then noise suppression, I think we're good there. I'm not hearing any background noise. Turn the low up, turn the high down. There we go. That's sounding all right. Turn the low quite a bit further down. Yeah, we probably want the low up a little bit. See how that affects it. Wait just for a few more people to shuffle and then we'll get started. Figure I might as well handle the audio testing while I can. That's sounding better. Yeah, I gotta work a little bit more on this. I think I'm gonna do one private stream and try and just totally iron this out. But this is better. This is already quite a bit better. I'll take that. So, at least we made some progress. All right. You'll have to apologize. I'm on my last Aku stick. Just had to have a little something before I started. Man, that's good. All right. Write that down. Sorry, you'll have to forgive me, not you'll have to apologize. Excuse me. Okay. Let's just go ahead and get started here. A pretty provocative title now, isn't it? The Aloha State, which I am now a resident of, is known for extraordinarily high costs of living. It's also known for being one of the best places to live in the world, Both of those statements are true. Now, what I will tell you is that the idea that you can live here for under $20 an hour isn't as far-fetched as it seems. First off, are you going to make sacrifices? Yeah. Second off, will it be the traditional lifestyle that one might define as middle class? No. Third off, will it be a quality, what I would consider a quality lifestyle? I think so. And where I'm going with this is the reason I chose below average wage, I was thinking $20 an hour. So I went ahead and looked up, what the average retail worker wage at Costco here is, for instance, right? Costco, the one in Iwilei, which is the closest to downtown Honolulu, is the busiest Costco in the world. They are constantly hiring new people because it's a high stress job, I would say, at least as far as retail goes. But if, you're competent and can show up on time, you can usually get that job, and it usually starts a little bit above minimum wage, which I do believe is $15 an hour here. You know what? Just to be sure, I'm going to check that out, right? Now, if you're working minimum wage, you're probably still in the high school, college era, which means you probably have some family support. But let's just go ahead and say you're in your 20s. Maybe you've made a mistake or two, and you're not really all that skilled. You don't really have anything that brings to the table, but you're living in Hawaii. You don't want to leave. So, okay, sorry. Here we go. The current minimum wage here is $14 an hour. It's not 15, it's 14, but still. So I think 20 an hour is pretty reasonable. I know there are quite a few retail work jobs. Now, they won't be easy jobs, but you can get them. But let's go ahead and say, for argument's sake, fine. Let's go with 18 an hour. Now, I've seen Jack in the Box offering 17. If you can't find a way to get to 18 here, I don't want to say you're not trying, but it would seem to me that maybe you could find that. If you've got any work experience, if you've got any skills, and if you're even remotely reliable, you should be able to move up to at least 18, probably closer to 20 or even 25 an hour here in fairly short order. So, you're doing that for 40 hours a week. That's going to get you somewhere around the ballpark of $40,000 a year to work with. So you're going to have a monthly budget of roughly $3,333 a month. That's not a lot. However, if you are a single person, you don't need a lot. Okay, what do I mean? Well, yes, is the average rent extraordinarily high here? Without a doubt. However, let's take that job in Costco in Iwilei. Well, if you're working at Costco in Iwilei, you probably want to live fairly close by. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, the first reason is because you're not going to have to require a car to get to work. Cars are extremely expensive here, more so than any other place in the country. And if you're just trying to get by, if you're trying to survive, eliminating that expense goes a huge way to making everything work. So where are the neighborhoods you're going to look? You're probably going to look in Kalihi or Iwilei, because that's close to where your job is. Maybe Chinatown. Are those the nicest neighborhoods in Honolulu? No, they're not. And they shouldn't be. If you are not making multimillionaire money, why are you expecting to live near the multimillionaires? So, having looked my own right, as I came here, you can find decent, if not spectacular, apartments in and around that area for around $1,300-1,400 a month. Now, that is a lot of your income. That's after taxes getting close to about half. Now, you won't be paying much in taxes at that wage level. If anything, you probably get more government support than you will have to pay in taxes. You could look at Section 8 housing. There are drawbacks that come with that, but you could probably, if you're making under $40,000 a year, you could probably qualify if you're single. I believe, I don't know what it is exactly for this state, but I believe for a single person it's somewhere below 60,000 you qualify. So you could do that. Obviously, you know, you're going to want to make sure you don't live to the extent of your abilities. Try not to live next to people who are obvious drug addicts or obviously going to cause you problems in your life. And no, Kalihi is a working class neighborhood. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to deal with weirdos. You're going to deal with people who maybe don't have all their shit together. But you can survive, and as long as you're not an idiot, you're not going to have any issues with crime there. If you don't have a car, guess what? Your criminals can't steal it. Second thing you're going to do, you're going to get a bicycle, okay? All right, fine. Let's say you really, really don't have anything to start with. Fine. You're really pulling yourself off. Roll with a holo card. You can get a holo card for $3 at 7-Eleven. Load it up with a few extra trips. Use the bus when you absolutely have to. Walk where you can. If you're working at Costco, right after your first month, you'll make roughly $3,000, a little bit more after taxes. So $1,400 gone for your rent. All right, that leaves you with $2,200. $2,200. All right, let's talk about utilities. Utilities for a small apartment, which that's what you're going to have, and hell, you could get for a lot lower than $1,400 if you wanted to have roommates, but I'm not even going to touch that for now. Right? You can get an apartment in Kalihi for $1,400. I know because I looked, I chose to go with something nicer because I could afford it, but we're talking you're not making my money. I'm making nuclear engineer money. If you're at $2,200 left in your budget, by the time the first month has come through, you're going to use whatever money left over you have to buy a bicycle. All of a sudden, you've now tripled your range, or maybe even tripled to quintupled it, depending on how nice a bike and whether or not you get an electric one you get, in terms of how far you can go in terms of commute every day. That saves you lots of time. It would even allow you to work a second job if you wanted to. Now, I personally wouldn't go that route. I'd focus on getting a skill. Could be something as simple as being a forklift certified operator. Guess what Costco needs a lot of? How do they get all those pallets up on those shelves on the second and third floor? You become a forklift operator at Costco, all of a sudden you've increased your skills, you've increased your value, and you'll get a wage bump. That'll probably put you closer to $25 an hour. Try work on your commercial driver's license. The bus and the rail are looking for operators and workers. It's another easy way to do it. That'll put you into the working class. You're not going to be rich, but you'll manage. Once you've gotten to that point, right? So let's go back to food. First few months, right? If you're living on $40,000 a year, it's not going to be right. You're not going to be getting this. All right. You're going to be getting the rotisserie chicken special at Costco. That's going to be most of your meat. You're going to get a dried 50-pound sack of rice. You're going to get a dried 25-pound sack of pinto beans, right? These are your basic staple food items that, you know, you're going to get canned tomatoes. You can live off of rice, pinto beans, and canned tomatoes for a long fucking time on very little money. Half the world does it. Billions of people every day live on rice, beans, and a variety of canned vegetables. Just go ask anybody who lived in India at any amount of time. And you can make really great meals out of the most basic ingredients. You just have to know how to season it. And seasoning doesn't cost as much as you think it does. It's pretty basic to do. All right, so that's food covered. You throw in all those items. Yeah, 50-pound sack of rice costs you $25 at Costco or $30 at the Costco, but that should last you months. If you're a single guy, it'll last you months. Same thing with the beans. I would say $100 to $150, very doable for a food budget out here. It won't be glamorous, but it'll get done. You can also look at food banks if you genuinely really are starting out with nothing. You can make food out of a decent food bank. And most apartments, right, will come with a stove that does work. It may not be the nicest stove. It may not have granite countertops, but you know what? You don't fucking need granite countertops. Okay, so it looks like chat is still dead. I'm wondering if that's on my end. No, looks like nobody's here. Okay, Oh, that's fine. So you got your food covered. Now you got your utilities covered. You got your rent covered. At this point, those are your basic of basics. Say your rent's $1,400. Utilities is another $200, and that's, I would be shocked if it was that. Yes, utilities prices are extremely high out here, but if you've got a small apartment and you run a box fan, you'll be just fine. All right. Dude, what's up in Cookies and Cream? Welcome on in. Good. Glad to have you. Yeah, it looks like people are starting to shuffle in now. I'm going to check the audio one more time, make sure it still sounds good. Just because I want to... I'm still playing around with it, but I think I've got it better than it was. So see how that sounds for a moment here. Yeah, all right. Hold up. Okay, so let's say $1,400 for rent, $200 more for utilities. All right, so you're looking at $1,600. Food, $150. You'll get by. That's $1,750. Sound great? Well, I appreciate that. I've been playing around with the mic, trying to make it sound. I sounded so harsh the last few videos. I didn't like it. No dried counter stuff. Yes. Edition 300. I'm trying to make a serious point here, but all right. I'll go shirtless. We get. We get 25 likes on this video. I'll go shirtless. How about that? Anyway, so you're talking right now about $1,750 a month. You're making 33, or let's say you're making 3,000. That gives you $1,350 left over. I'd say that first month's savings, throw it in on a bike. You know, if Costco or whoever your employer is offers a 401k match, you take that because that shit's free money. And you don't really do a whole lot of fun activities, okay? You know what that's gonna mean? Your spare time, first off, you know, you're going to be grinding a lot, but your spare time is going to involve going down to Sand Island and you can relax on the beach. That's the great thing about this state. There is always a nice free activity, hiking and the beach. That's you can have fun on very, very little money here. Appreciate that. Thanks for the likes, y'all. So let's talk a few other essentials. Cell phones. Yeah, it's more or less a necessity at this point. Same with internet. Although if you have one, you can get away without having the other. I would say you can get a basic used secondhand Motorola for under $100, or you can go with a newer phone, again a newer Motorola for closer to $200 to $300. You do that. Get a mint plan for, you know, really basic cell service. You're talking, okay, now you got $15, $20 a month there. So, okay, you know, that's a one-time expense. Internet, sort of the same thing. Maybe another, again, you get a really basic platform. You know, you're not going to need more than that. You really just want enough to do essentials. You're not going to become... You're not going to start streaming incredibly high-end video games in your apartment here. This is your basic living right now. Ooh, cookies and cream. That's a great question. I'll get back to that. So you're talking about another $50 a month for really basic internet plan. And again, there are out here subsidized programs for low-income people. So you have that option available as well. But let's say you don't want to do that. You're Mr. Libertarian, stand up straight. I don't take no help from anybody. So you're talking, that's going to put you right around the $1,900 ballpark for monthly expenses. Again, the bike, right? A cell phone, these are one-time expenses. You don't have to pay that every month. Unless you're an idiot and you finance your cell phone. For the love of Christ, do not finance your cell phone. All right. Let's talk a few other budgetary basics. And at that point, then you talk progress, okay? So what other issues you got? Healthcare. If you're making money that low, congratulations. You live in a blue state. Obamacare is going to subsidize your ass anyway. And if that fails, you'll have Medicaid available for you because you're low income. So you don't got to worry about that. Car insurance or car anything. If you're making less than $40,000, $50,000 a year here and you own a car, reconsider your priorities. You should not, under any circumstances, own a car on under 50 grand a year out here. That's just insane. Otherwise, a gym membership, to me, that's a necessity. Some people would say it isn't. You know, you can definitely, if you stick to cardio, yeah, you're not going to get jacked, right? You're not going to have this going on, but you're still going to look pretty good. I don't know why I didn't turn my light on until now, but, right? This, yes, a gym is required to hit that, more or less, but you can still stay in great shape without having a gym. I managed to do so during the pandemic. Was it easy? No. Could I do it? Yes. Can you fart on command? No. Unless that, well, sometimes. Depends on how many beans I've had. Other items. Clothing. I recommend finding a charity cause you support. And almost always, if you find charities or events that you want to go to or that you want to support, they always give away a free t-shirt. Eventually, you can build a wardrobe out of that. I basically have. And I promise, cookies and cream, I will get back to your comment or your question, because that's a really good one. I want to dive a little deeper into that. Okay, other items. Alcohol. If you are if you're working a fucking minimum wage job, what the fuck are you doing buying alcohol? It's completely unnecessary expense. Tobacco, same thing. Cannabis. Are you kidding me? Technically, it's still illegal here. Don't fucking do that. All right. Travel, really recreation, you know, you could buy yourself a used boogie board here. I would say, again, get used to riding a bike for a while, because that's how you're going to get around. Eventually, you can upgrade to an electric one. The first few months, you should have some savings, right? Yeah, I know. Normally, I do have the spotlight on, but the light's on now, so my bad. I forgot. I've been busy brainstorming about this. So once you get through the first couple of months, you've established a base. And again, if at some of these service tier jobs, just showing up is 90% of not getting fired. All you have to do is not be a complete fucking doofus, and you'll keep that job. If you show any amount of initiative, you'll probably move up pretty quick. Again, my recommendation would be is, say you're working at the Costco or the Home Depot there in Iwilei, you get a forklift certification, all of a sudden you've just boosted your market value above every other minimum wage employee that's still working there. You'll be making low to mid 20s an hour in no time. You do that, okay, now you've got a little bit of breathing room. Start saving up for stuff. I would recommend save up for a tech code certification, something like learning how to weld, learning how to be a carpenter, learning how to do HVAC tech, learning how to do electrical work. This is assuming college is not really in the question at this point. Boogie board, ain't that for the water? Yes. What we're talking about here, if you somehow missed the title of this stream, it's how to live on a low wage in Hawaii. Right, so I live in Hawaii. It is unbelievably expensive to live here. I will not deny that. However, it is possible to live on very little. Anyway, if you had to go get a car, I would say do everything you can in your power to not own a car here. But if circumstances or perhaps a higher paying job warranted the purchase of a car, what you do is you go to japexpress.net and you import a Japanese K car or a K van. First off, a K van is an incredibly useful vehicle. I may do this in the future. It's an incredibly useful vehicle. It is a car with more room than a midsize SUV, and that has the footprint in terms of space of a subcompact. It's a brilliant machine. The Japanese have been cranking them out forever, and they're in good shape. If you know the most basic of mechanical skills, you can keep them on the road. Scared of the water, use a bike. I was arguing, right, okay, another, if you really want a recreation, a good pair of hiking boots. You can find a decent pair for $100 to $200. You can spare that, and then now you can hike as far as your bike can go or as far as you can take a bus route. I think that's pretty good. Anyway, something in my ear. Had a bug bite me there. It's itchy. Anyway, if you could carpool with someone, how much would be appropriate to pay that person based on Hawaii gas prices? Okay. First item here. The biggest suck away of owning a car or using a car is not necessarily gasoline. It's the time value of money when you're driving, because traffic is horrendous, especially in Honolulu. And I am aware that Honolulu and Oahu as a whole do not represent all the challenges the state of Hawaii has in terms of cost of living. However, 70% of the state's population lives on Oahu, so it does apply to the majority of people, right? It's very easy to go and nitpick and find exceptions. And yes, things are different and possibly in some ways harder on other islands. But as far as carpooling with someone, I would say it depends. How many days are you doing it? Is it just once a week? Is it 5 times a week? How far are they having to go out of their way to get you, right? Hawaii gas, like this comment is a very good one. I like the thinking here, because carpooling is a great idea. It used to be a lot more popular in the 70s when there was actual gas lines and gas shortages, because we tried to put a price ceiling on gasoline, which created a shortage. That's a little economic hint for you guys. Price ceilings and floors don't work. It's a watered down form of socialism. Just gonna let you know that now. But the price of gasoline is a fraction of the total cost of owning a car. Here, fuel prices range between at present $4 and $5 a gallon. In general, that's the ballpark. In some parts of this island they're closer to 5, in some they're closer to 4. So a gallon of gas, assuming that, it really, again, it depends on how many miles you're going. Because if your commute, if you're on the way, for your coworker to pick you up, it should be very little. If you're out of the way for your coworker to pick you up, it should be more. Because what you need to do is stop looking at car ownership costs as gas alone. Fuel is certainly part of it, don't get me wrong, but fuel, maintenance, which is a per mile basis as far as I'm concerned, unless you're one of those people who just likes to idle their car for a long time for no reason, in which case, why? Fuel, maintenance, insurance, repairs, and maintenance and repairs are two different things. Maintenance is going to be your periodic replacements, things like oil changes, tire rotations, which you can do those yourself, but you have to buy new oil and eventually you have to buy new tires. Those aren't really repair items. It's just natural wear items that you have to budget for. And then repairs are for if, and really for most cars, when the car breaks down. Unless you bought yourself a 1993 Toyota Tacoma, you're going to have to expect eventual breakdowns. And even then, even 90s Japanese cars eventually do have things that need to be replaced, or you get rust, which out here, right, you got saltwater air coming in from the sea, is an issue. So I would say it really, cookies and cream. My answer would be it depends. And my recommendation is for you to not look at gas prices as the number one way of thinking about operation costs of a vehicle. Here's a really good example. The Internal Revenue Service, our great folks who collect taxes all the time, are the ones who set the mileage reimbursement rates for car ownership. This has been, I think right now it's somewhere around 65 cents per mile. Now, doing math, okay, real quick here. Let's say you've got a car that gets 30 miles to the gallon. Gas costs $4 for a gallon. In other words, it costs $4 just in fuel to go 30 miles, right? So if you just calculated the cost of gas, right, that means you're paying $4 every 30 miles. In other words, every mile you're paying, so if it's $4 for 30 miles, every mile you're paying roughly 13 cents in just gasoline costs alone. But you'll say, wait a minute, well then why is the IRS using 65 cents? Well, again, all those wear and tear items, insurance, and the rest of it, they add up a lot and fast. So I would say you don't gotta go IRS limits. I think that's a bit generous. I think it also depends, right? The cost of car ownership will be depending on how stupid a car you own. If you own a stupid car, it's going to cost you a lot more to operate. Stupid cars include Hummers, Maseratis, Jags, anything imported, expensive, really anything that has more than a 4-cylinder engine. Dodge Challengers, right? These are cars that aren't very intelligent to own. I love them. Don't get me wrong. I do appreciate cars, but if you live in a place like this, Oahu does not have that many roads at which you can go more than 50 miles an hour anyway. Oahu has some of the worst traffic in the world, so you're not going very fast. And there's not that far. You can't just really go for a drive. There's just not that much land to drive on. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to own a car that's built for those things, right? A Dodge Challenger is a muscle car. It's meant for, quarter miles and long highway poles on empty, deserted roads in the middle of Texas. Those don't exist here. So in terms of Hawaii, you shouldn't be owning a car like that. The one I really can't stand here are the lifted trucks. This is a mostly urban island. What the hell are you doing with a lifted truck? Now, a lifted truck makes sense on some of the other islands. You live in Molokai, or if you live in Hawaii Island, like the Big Island, totally. That's a much more rugged terrain. It's a lot less, it's a lot less friendly to just a basic 2-wheel drive car. But here, no. Idle my trucks. Okay, do they have big spiders there? They do not. Very cute photo of such a car on the Discord general chat. Yeah, I'm looking at importing a K-van. That's part of why I brought this up. But let's see. Get an EV. So electric vehicles do make some amount of sense here. The problem is electric vehicles are still very expensive to purchase. Charging infrastructure is only really good on Oahu, and the price of electricity here is very high. Electric prices are about 40 to 45 cents a kilowatt hour. In other words, if you have a 100 kilowatt hour battery, as a lot of Teslas, for instance, do, that's a $45 fill up in effect, which is not that much better than gasoline. State truck is the Tacoma. I can understand why on a cultural level. There's a high Japanese population here, and the Taco has historically, even before when it was called the T100, and before that the Toyota truck, incredibly reliable vehicle, rust prone, although in earlier iterations. 90s Tacos are very rust prone. You gotta treat that frame very, very deliberately. You can get solar here, but the cost of installing solar is going to be higher, because where do you get all the panels from? Where do you get the inverter from? Where do you get the equipment from? And I mean, obviously, if you're installing solar, that implies you own the property on which you are installing it. Good luck buying Hawaii real estate. That's just, look, I make 6 figures, and even I'm not even going to, I fuck that. No. Carpool with someone on the way. Yes, I would agree with that. Better still, again, if a bunch of people carpool along a given route, it can then have stops. This is commonly known as a bus. That's public transit now. That's crazy talk. Dog goes with me every day to my shop, deliveries, pickups, and errands. Why? Nate, can you explain what the point of... Why would you take your dog everywhere? Your dog doesn't... What? I don't understand that. Certainly, if you're going to idle all the time, use an electric for sure. Because yes, and I've owned a 7.3 Power Stroke. For the love of God, don't just let that sit there idling. One of my trucks is a 22 F-150 Lightning Platinum. That is an expensive truck. Only costs 25 cents per hour to idle with AC on. Yeah, that sounds about right. Less if you can find a free plug-in, which, those are not common, but they do exist. He's good for business. My customers love them. In that case, yeah, you want an electric vehicle. Honestly, I would think you'd want. I don't know what your business is, but I would think if it's just using your dog as like a sales pitch, you probably want, you know, a sedan or a SUV. But that maybe there's some reason you need a truck that I don't know about. Hondas are good vehicles. In general, if you're going to buy a Honda, go for a manual one. Honda's manual transmissions are top of the game. Their automatics are less sturdy, but they're still decent. Again, I love the Power Stroke, especially the 7.3, one of the greatest engines Ford ever built. Well, I say Ford, International built. Or Navistar, I guess was the technical term. It was really the International T444. Ford got the bright idea of, you know, Dodge is making a lot of money throwing Cummins engines in their truck. Maybe we should do that instead of whatever the hell the IDI was. Printing is my real money business, and I restore neon signs and make new ones as my second job hobby. That's pretty good, man. See, that's a really interesting niche, Nate Hawkins. That's really cool. Absolutely love to hear that. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, and that's the rub too. So we've already talked about how live here on a below average wage. Find a niche, right? There are always in an economy with over 1 million people, which is what the island of Oahu is. There will always be loads and loads of opportunities like that. You have 24 F250 limiteds with the H 6.7 pound. Dude, why? I can understand having. I mean, is it one of these tax things where you can deduct the depreciation on those absolute monster vehicles? Because it seems to me like it seems to me like you have a lot of vehicle that maybe you don't need that's costing you a lot of money. I mean, an F250, a brand new F250 limited with a 6.7 power stroke, that's an $80,000 vehicle right there. Yeah, I mean, even if you're buying with discounts or incentives, that's a lot of money, no matter how. Excuse me, no matter how you slice it. I don't own a car. I've been thinking about getting a K-van. But I hope for the love of God you don't live in Hawaii with those, because that's brutal. But I you know, again, if you can find you've got enough business acumen to know, okay, you can write off those vehicles, provided you're doing real business work with them. Please don't try to defraud the IRS. That's not smart. But it sounds like you're smart enough to know not to do that. Frankly, Jesus Christ, 94,000 a piece. I mean, I get it. You can write it off on your taxes, but boy, howdy, your income. I hope your business income is high enough to justify that kind of a tax write-off. Because you can write off depreciation to an extent, but you have to be bringing in loads and loads of income to actually reap that kind of a cut. I don't think it works in the sense that you get money back. So that is just, wow, that's a lot of money. Third truck is my personal vehicle. If income is very good, all three are paid off. Okay, well then, I personally wouldn't do that. I would personally, if I were you, I would have chosen something smaller as your personal vehicle. Not really a need for a third truck, but hey, if you can justify the cost, there is benefit to that. Although if you're looking for freedom, right, that's one of the things I've managed to achieve. I'm financially independent, and I've managed to do that by cutting expenses. If you sound like you might be one of these folks. I don't know if you ever heard of the FIRE movement, but if you are looking to become financially independent, I would be looking at maybe trying to narrow that down, and you probably have it. Although you may already, and you may really enjoy your business to the point where you wouldn't want to do that in the first place. I don't really know, but you're an interesting fellow, Mr. Hawkins. Good to have you on the chat. So I got one for you. with all the DEF requirements that new diesels have, and especially with the price of diesel fuel being higher in most states than gasoline, why go for a newer Power Stroke over, say, the Godzilla V8? 27 years now, or 46 years old. Good for you, man. What was your security? Okay, what was your situation with apartment hunting? Okay. Craigslist is your friend, first off. If you're really starting with very little money, what you're going to have to do is probably go with the roommate route. Because roommates, you can negotiate first month's security deposit and all that. If you've not been a complete dipshit with your money and you have enough to pay for first month's rent, you can look at an individual apartment. I like Craigslist. You can do Zillow, apartments.com, Trulia, and you can also sometimes go the old-fashioned route. See if, I believe the Honolulu Star Advertiser still has a classified section. You never know. As for my situation, I took my time. I had a friend out here, and I was paying her to split her apartment. I was paying her more than I pay to live alone here. I don't want to say she was taking advantage of the situation, but she was kind of taking advantage of the situation. Which, hey, that's more power to her, capitalism and all that. But I looked around, first off, I knew I didn't want to own a car here. So, all right, well, how am I going to handle that? That means I need to live closer to where I work, which I think everyone should do, because commuting is a huge waste of time and a huge societal negative, because you're not in traffic, okay? You are traffic, right? You can't complain about the rush hour without recognizing you're part of the problem if you're in a single car. Now, if you're in a bus and you're stuck in traffic because it's a bunch of cars, that's different. Power Stroke is way more fun to drive, pull a trailer. Has the exhaust brake, definitely consumption. Averages 1.7 gal. Okay, that's not bad. 24, that's not bad running 75 miles an hour. You must actually, you don't have much of a lead foot then. Good for you. Yeah, no, for hauling, the diesel is definitely the move. I was guessing with your business you weren't doing a lot of hauling, but if you are, then yeah. For serious work, Godzilla sounds like it's a very reliable motor, but I guess time will tell on that. I haven't driven. The most recent diesel engine I've driven was a 7.3, so what the hell do I know? Actually, no, I take that back. I had no, that was also a 7.3. Yeah. The OG Power Stroke. Lead foot's reserved for lighting. Yeah, so in terms of pulling power, sorry, not pulling power, acceleration, really, electric will beat everything. I mean, there's a reason, like, the Tesla Model S can keep up with most supercars that are internal combustion engine. But as far as my situation for finding housing, I took my time, found an apartment I really liked in a location I really liked. More importantly, that had a gym, which is why I can do those gym streams for y'all. I had a really nice gym, and it worked out really nicely. Should you go test drive a new 6.7? No. I don't like driving vehicles that big. I mean, a brand new F-250 is massive. I've driven an E450. Speaking of vehicles, okay, the 7.3 is a slug until you wake it up. You can put a lot more power into a 7.3 if you know what you're doing. God, I had a buddy back in old Van Zandt County, Texas. Threw in new injectors. He basically an entire, like, the amount of custom shit he did to that 7.3. It's barely a stock. Like, the engine block is stock. That's basically about it. But he was getting 500 horse, and oh yeah, he wasn't lying. Fucker was fast, man. No, as far as the 7.3 I had was in an E450 van, which had comically low gearing. So it was quick until about 50. And then at about 60 or 65 miles an hour, it would start making much more concerning noises than one would like to hear, because it was operating at an RPM that, as a diesel, you don't want it to. You really don't want. unless you're really pushing it up a hill or something, you don't want a diesel to be operating north of 2K RPM for the most part. Diesels are pretty happy at that 1500 mark in general, not always, but in general. The gearing made that tough, but the 7.3 van was a derated engine. And there were some other things they did. The Ford Econoline was never meant to have that engine in it, and it becomes extremely obvious when you try to work on that fucker. Because let me tell you, man, the doghouse. Okay, the doghouse is great if you want to install up pipes. That's about it. That's the only advantage the van has instead of the truck, dude. Batteries only got one because there's not a room for a second battery. Because at F250 of those eras, you had an auxiliary and a second battery. E-Series doesn't have that. Air intake, lol. Spark plug, or not spark plug, sorry, glow plugs, lol. Anything related to the injectors, lol. You got to drop the engine to do almost any serious work on this fucker. Oh yeah, ambulances. I mean, solid ambulances, school buses, local county transit buses, which is what I had. Fucker was a dually too. I was trying to build it into a van life thing, but then ended up selling it when I moved to South Carolina a few years back. That it was a comically funny vehicle, and again, I chipped it, threw a custom exhaust on it. The other issue with this 7.3 van is you throw custom exhaust, which may or may not have been straight piped. With the F250, at least, the F-Series, the engine is at least a few feet in front of you. It's right there next to your knee. The exhaust is right there next to your knee. And the doghouse on a 20-year-old E-Series van, ask me in the Discord, I'll throw pictures of that in there. It's not very thick. So the noise this thing was making, one time I drove it from North Texas all the way down to College Station, and I was going, my ears were ringing for hours afterwards. I was going 60. That thing was, I think it was turning just a little over $2,000 it was turning $2,000 at 55, 2,200 at 60, and don't go there at 70. The noise this thing, I'm telling you, the noise plus all the wind noise, right, because it's coach work, a 20-year-old transit bus, fucking biblically loud. It was hilarious. We were going down Interstate 30 one time with some friends. Like, they were having a conversation in the back. They were like trying to talk to me, and I'm like, "What? I have no idea what you're saying." Yeah, the doghouse was, well, and again, for I think what engines normally went in the Econoline, because the Econoline, that platform had been in production since the 1970s. It still is as a cutaway, but that was meant for a 351 Windsor Block V8 or a 5-liter, 302. It was meant for Ford and Carter era engines. It was never meant for the 7.3 turbo diesel, and it shows. Freaking wild. Dude, it was even crazier as you imagine working on a 460 in that thing. Jesus Christ. I don't know if it came with a straight six or not. It might have. That was a damn reliable engine, though. Man, 300 straight six, fantastic. One of the best gas engines an American car company's ever put out. It was the 4.6 modular that came later. That was in the 90s. The 5.0 for a long time. The 5.8 or the 351 if you want to go imperial. And then it had, this is the straight six. Okay. And then it had, what was the other one? The 5.4 Triton, that was in there. That was a little bit later. Triton was not a good engine. There's one other engine they threw in there a lot. It had the IDI for a while. Oh God, yeah, the IDI, the 6.9, and then that became the IDI 7.3, and then it became the proper Power Stroke 7.3. The IDI is, you want to talk about a slow engine? Holy shit, dude! An IDI makes a 7.3, a stock 7.3 look fast. And hell, I've driven a CUCV before. The 6.2 Detroit diesel, not a bad engine if you use it for what it was applied for. The 6.2 Detroit diesel was relatively efficient for a vehicle or for an engine its size. Absolute dog on power. So slow. But I got a soft spot for those square bodies. Plus, the Detroit diesel in a K5 Blazer, that is one reliable engine. That is one reliable car. Again, if you keep it stock. If you try to put power onto a 6.2, that's a bad choice. Don't do that. Hell, GM basically tried to put power on a 6.2, came up with a 6.5 turbo. The 6.5 turbo had God knows how many problems. 1984 6.9 IDI. Oh, that's not even turboed, is it? If it's 84, that's going to be it. Let me guess. That was an NA 6.9? Fuck, that's a slow engine. Damn reliable, but... The 6.5 was not as good as the 6.2. The 6.2 was slow, but in its stock form, reliable. And then you want to go 80s diesels. It's hard to beat the original 5.9 Cummins. Slow as well, but fantastic. OG 12-valve Cummins is, I know, it's the only reason anybody would suffer owning an early 90s Chrysler product. I'll put it that way. Because it's not for the truck. The truck got Chrysler electrics, Chrysler plastics, Chrysler transmissions, unless you got a manual, garbage. But that Cummins engine, though, pretty fucking good. I'm a 19 years old, first diesel truck is a 99 Cummins 24 valve. I hear the 24 valves weren't ever quite as reliable as the 12 valves, so I don't have as much experience with the Cummins. I know that, I know the 6BT, that's the 12 valve, and then you got the 4BT. Jeez, 241,000 miles on 5 years. Okay, so this is one example. You are one example of a fella who has... If you're putting those kinds of miles on your vehicles, then yes, it makes sense to buy newer, and you can afford to buy them more expensive because you're spending a large percentage of your life in them. If that's what you like to do, more power to you. I guess we got. See, this is what happens. You engage an engineer on cars. I don't own a car, but I could talk about cars all day. Anyway, as far as as far as living here on below average salary, I think I've explained how to do it pretty well. You know, it's not comprehensive, but it can be done. And I'd like to say that I basically do almost all of the advice I listed. Right now, I chose a nicer apartment. I don't live in Kalihi, but that's because I make an engineer's salary. I can afford to do that. Now, my apartment isn't that ritzy. I don't want to give away how much I pay for rent because that would probably result in doxing, but I pay well below $3,000 a month. I'll put it that way, and that's everything included. Mine's a reliable Bosch VP40 fuel pump out 99 grand, replaced under warranty. That's not bad. That's pretty solid. The 241K in 5 years that's a lot of time in that truck. Hey, it looks like my caps won. Happy about that. Anywho, we got 8 likes. I think it was, what did I say, 25, and I'll take my shirt off. I feel like I want to encourage a little bit of a higher level of discourse in the chat today. Maybe that was a mistake because now it's just a conversation between me and one other person who's got some interesting stories about trucks. Could talk trucks all fucking day though. So Nate, I do appreciate that. All right, yeah, I was actually thinking about making some other videos. fairly soon. Like thinking maybe do a basic who am I and what is this channel type of video. And I'm not even talking a live recording. I'm talking just an actual like interview kind of video. I did that in the past for my Twitch channel. I think maybe I'd like to do that again for YouTube. Might be a good way to update that. Then thinking about doing like a top 10 most frequently asked questions kind of video, stuff like that. But you know, just seeing where it goes. So I could talk a little bit about workouts. This morning had a pretty solid leg day. Went a little bit higher tempo, a little bit lower weight. Definitely tough. I voted for Trump today. Hope that's okay to say on here. Nate Hawkins, while I did not vote for Trump, I would like to commend you for doing two things. The first is for voting, because that's your civic duty, and as a God-fearing American, or even if you're not God-fearing, just as an American in general, you should vote, and if you don't vote, you don't have the right to complain. My father served for 29 years in the United States Air Force, and I feel very strongly about that. Even if you don't like the presidential candidates, vote in your state and local elections, because I promise you, it does matter. If you guys are curious as to who and what I voted for, you can ask. I'm not going to say it without mentioning, but that's totally fine. If you want to vote for Trump, hey, more power to you. Right, obviously, living here, right, this state is going to go blue no matter what I do. So if I will say one thing on that is, if you live in a swing state, it may make more sense to vote tactically. But if you don't live in a swing state, as something like, what, 70%, 80% of the population does, you don't need to worry about your vote in particular, you know, having to go to one of the major two-party candidates, even though those are the only two. Oh, you're in Ohio? Well, then yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's, you live in a swing state, right? So for me, I guess for president, I did not vote for either of the two major party candidates, but it's not going to matter here. This state will go for Kamala no matter what I do. But on the lower ballot stuff, that's what matters, right? We're talking state representatives, right, both to the U.S. Congress and U.S. Senate, but then also for your state Senate, state House of Representatives, county elections, local elections, right? Yeah, everybody's all up in arms about this culture war bullshit, but who's going to teach your kid, right? If you have a family, that's up to your local school boards. So maybe pay attention to those kinds of elections. And I'll give the Republicans credit on this. While again, I don't necessarily agree with conservatives on everything, it seems to me as though the Republican Party has done a much better job at focusing on the lower level elections than the Democratic Party has done. It's okay, at least you voted. Same in Kentucky, we're redder than a herring. I mean, for what it's worth, yeah. Again, it's about voting. Even if I moved here from, by the way, I moved here from an equally politically uncompetitive state. I previously lived in South Carolina, and South Carolina it's a solid red state. It's apart from, and it's gerrymandered to shit. The Republicans have gerrymandered South Carolina something fierce, because it's basically the way it runs is there are 7 electoral districts for Congress in South Carolina. 6 of them are very conservative, and then the one is basically it's South Carolina, the heavy black districts, basically, which, because of the way the Civil Rights Act played out and all that, still leans very Democratic. Also because of the Clyburn family. The Clyburn family is a very strong political dynasty that, more than most people realize, influenced the 2020 election. People forget that Joe Biden's campaign was shot until South Carolina. And it was Clyburn whipping votes that got Biden that major win, without which Joe Biden would never have become president in 2020. So, just an interesting factoid there. South Carolina electoral politics are very interesting. Thank you, LBJ, for the Great Society. There's some interesting things about that. LBJ mirrors both Trump and Biden in some very interesting facets. First off, as far as the man himself, unfathomably based, because he would hold meetings on the toilet and force his staffers to take notes while he was taking a shit. Just absolute Giga Chad energy right there. Hats off to him for that. But you think about the amount of this is the trouble with Johnson. You've got some incredible things, right? The Johnson administration was the big push to get us on the moon at NASA. Yes, Kennedy made the promise, but Kennedy got deleted by Lee Harvey Oswald in the grassy knoll in Dallas in 1963. Or by insert conspiracy here. I'm not going down that path. But LBJ, right, you have NASA, which is not just one of humanity's greatest achievements, certainly one of America's greatest achievements, but an incredible value for the money. The amount of innovation we got from the Apollo program was worth every fucking penny, and we should have kept it going through Nixon and Ford and Carter and the rest. However, escalation of Vietnam, inflationary. War is one of the most inflationary things you can do. It's the reason Russia is having such bad inflation right now, and even though they cook the shit out of the books in Russia, it's bad. The ruble is now worth less than a penny. They used to be worth about 2 pennies, so that's pretty bad. 2 years slide, it's gone from something like 67 or 60 rubles to the dollar, and now it's like 120. Trump almost got deleted twice. Yeah. Never ever wish assassination on someone. And again, this is one where I don't think anybody actually wants to see Trump get shot. There are people with Trump derangement syndrome that do. But even then, if you made them stop and think about the backlash that would occur, would that happen? They would immediately backtrack from that. They would. But with LBJ, the Civil Rights Act was incredibly necessary. And it only would have happened with someone like LBJ, because LBJ was the most experienced congressman in a long time to be president at that time. He knew how to whip Congress into doing what had to be done. So credit to LBJ for that. Escalation of Vietnam, inflationary. Great Society, incredibly inflationary. Medicare, inflationary. But the worst thing about the Great Society and Medicare was not tying Medicare to life expectancy. And the same can be said for Social Security, although you can argue that was something that should have been done from the get-go. You don't know what you don't know. I'm not going to blame FDR for that in 1935, because as it was originally constructed, Social Security was a very responsible program. The retirement age for Social Security, the eligibility age, was 62, and life expectancy is 59. That is a fiscally sustainable program that, yes, would help, in the 1930s, if you were a bricklayer or a farm laborer, yeah, you probably couldn't do that job at 62 anymore. So I'm okay with Social Security the way it was originally constructed in the 1930s. There's a very big difference between that and the 15-year endless party for boomers that it has now become. Excuse me. But no, LBJ, I go back and forth. There's some things that I thought was incredible. Since we're on a rabbit hole, dude, you can ask me anything. One thing I support on this channel is free speech. You say whatever the fuck you want. I mean, okay, free speech so long as it doesn't get me kicked off of YouTube. If you're trying to get me kicked off of YouTube, okay, hey, please don't do that. Thanks. Otherwise, we're pretty clear. And this is a small channel, so you don't have to worry about the algorithm or whatever. I don't care about how big my audience gets. Not to that degree. Not to the degree I'd censor myself. I'd like it to get bigger, but come on. What's your feeling on the jabs? So I was born in a military family. Vaccination was not an option for us growing up. You just had to get it. That was, and it's mission critical. And that's for measles, mumps, rubella, which is the original one with the Wakefield, Dr. Wakefield, who turned out to be a fucking scam artist. And, the measles MMR vaccine causes autism. No, it doesn't, okay? That was bullshit, and Wakefield is a bullshit artist. Let's separate that whole scandal and mass stupidity event that occurred in the late 90s with the COVID vaccines, okay? COVID vaccines, were they effective? The answer is it's hard to tell. However, COVID vaccines, were they the best option we had at the time? I'd argue, yeah, they were. I went and got them because I had to as a function of my employment. I was a federal nuclear worker, and I still, in some sense, am. I didn't have the choice, and I did not feel strongly enough about the vaccine to where I wanted to risk employment over it. Furthermore, again, given the other options, right, I wanted first off, the lockdowns were one of the dumbest things we've ever done as a country. The fact that we closed down gyms in particular is mind-blowing because the biggest comorbidity for COVID-19 was, and will continue to be obesity. It's fat people that got killed off, whacked even harder than old people. So that you'd close down the gyms to stop COVID deaths is insanity to me. Absolutely fucking bonkers. Beyond the first few weeks, irresponsible. That being said, if you want to state, right, the only way to keep things open is to embrace the vaccine, fuck it, yeah, I would absolutely. If it meant I still got to use the gym. And first off, if you're a private gym owner, you can require you can require someone to come into your business. You can require they present a vaccination card. I wouldn't have chosen to do that had I ran a business at that time, but it's your right to do that as a business. Government handed me massive money and the gross sales were through the roof. You'd be blown away to hear my story. Oh God, I'm already pretty cynical about the government, man. But yeah, I'd be interested in hearing more about that. But in general, I supported the vaccine. Was it perfect? No. Was it the best option we had? Yeah, it was. I will say I tested positive after getting vaccinated, and I was asymptomatic. One of my brothers did not get the vaccine and got COVID way worse than I did. And he was fine, but he felt like shit. I felt nothing. That's anecdotes, okay? That's not data. I'm in very good shape, which definitely probably helped me, but so is my brother. So in general, I'm pro-vaccine. And right, was the vaccine let out under emergency circumstances? Yes, because we were in a global pandemic. Of course they were. We developed the vaccine at lightning speed, and that was both the Trump and the Biden administration that pushed it, which credit should be due there on both administrations. That was a wise use of funds. As for right in the 50s, right, we came out with the polio vaccine. That was funded with a whole lot of effort. And in the 50s, the Eisenhower administration aggressively pushed that everybody went and got the vaccine. There used to be a thing called sock hops, which is like you were dancing in your socks or whatever. But it was that you'd go get vaccinated, and then they'd have a sock hop party for everybody who got the shot. Now, again, COVID-19 and polio are two different things, but the point still remains. This is one where, to me, you should have the individual liberty to pick, but weighing between the pros and the cons, given the circumstances of a known deadly virus that was killing, at the time, 2020 and 2021, several hundreds of thousands of people per year, I'll take the shot. Banks were an inch away from systemic collapse at the end of 2019, as reverse repo reports on the website. I don't think they were. The trouble with the banking industry at the moment, right? They got too addicted to the easy money that started getting printed out, and rightfully so. The Federal Reserve needed to cut interest rates in 2008. But the Federal Reserve in 2017, 18, 19 started trying to boost interest rates off of the rock bottom levels they had been for God knows how long. That'd be, 8, 9 years? As should have been done. You had the government browbeating the Fed, and this is probably the biggest problem I have with Donald Trump, is that he was using the bully pulpit to get Jerome Powell to cave and bring interest rates back down, which is fiscally irresponsible. That's part of what caused the most recent levels of inflation. Not everything. Obviously, the mind-blowingly large amount of government spending in 2020 and 2021, then 2022 and 2023, much bigger factor. But low interest rates having occurred through most of the 2010s, which were pretty prosperous. Once you got around 2014, 2015, pretty prosperous economic times. The latter Obama years were pretty good. It's funny, you go back and look at 2012, I think it was Mitt Romney promised to get the unemployment rate down to 6%, and it was 5% by the end of Obama's second term. The latter Obama years were pretty good. The Trump years were pretty good. But that was part of the problem. It was that what you had there was a combination of keeping interest rates too low for too long, and then a lot of unnecessary deficit spending. Again, Trump, that's my biggest problem with it was fiscal irresponsibility, which you shouldn't, you should expect that from Trump. Like he's what he call himself, the king of bankruptcies or whatever. He is not a fiscally responsible man in the sense that that's not how he operates his businesses. So why would you expect him to operate the government that way? PPP and SBA hand out cash while we have inflation like we do. That was to prop up banks' reserves. I think it was more than that. I think it was, I don't know. I know PPP, what that stood for. That was for the businesses. I don't know what SBA stood for. Was that the program to pay people their wages while they weren't working during the pandemic? Or what is that SBA? What does SBA stand for? Is that student loan bailouts? Oh, Small Business Administration. Okay. I wasn't sure. Thank you very much, 88. I don't think it's all of that. I think it's, and yes, there was a ton of money just pissed away, wasted there. But that's part of why the lockdowns were such a bad idea. None of that would have been necessary if you had just not gone with the lockdown route for, more than a couple of weeks. And beyond this, why on earth are we, as a government, as a society even, why are we not pushing more towards remote work? That's such a great idea. The amount of savings that would cause the entire economy. Let's talk about this for a moment. If you fully embrace telecommuting, this is going to produce a ton of excess and empty real estate in the cities, which can be then turned into housing. It's not perfect, but some cities, I'll give credit actually, of all places, Seattle is doing this. Very left-wing Seattle is starting. You're starting to see corporate business infrastructure getting turned into housing, which good. That solves two problems. The amount of wear and tear on our roads would drop dramatically because you'd have a lot less in the way of commuters on it. Gasoline consumption would drop dramatically, as it did in 2020, which would cause fuel prices to go down. But more importantly, would allow us to export fuel, which means we could stop the Russians and Saudis where they fucking lay. And I'm a huge fan of that because the world abhors a power vacuum, and it's either us or the people in Moscow and Beijing, and we're the best option. Let's not kid ourselves here. I'm a huge fan of cutting. The simple answer is that's the other one. We produce more oil than any other country in the world. We produce more oil now than we have at any other point in time in the United States. Our problem is that we are fucking gluttonous and we consume all of it. So anything that reduces oil consumption is a huge net win for the U.S. economy because we can then export it. Once we start, if the U.S. could start exporting some of its massive oil production numbers, we would have every other OPEC, every other oil producing country by the balls. We'd have Iran by the balls. We'd have Russia by the balls. We'd have, Venezuela has themselves by the balls, but we'd have the fucking Saudis by the balls. Okay, maybe not the Saudis so much. They have such a low cost of production, but still, we'd certainly have the Russians and Iran sitting there begging us to fucking stop and turn off the taps. Why wouldn't we fucking do that? Well, good luck getting Americans to, not embrace giant inefficient vehicles. I get that that's a pipe dream. Jimmy Carter tried it and got kicked out of office almost immediately. Okay, fine. But at least you go with remote work. Again, fuel prices during the pandemic were around $1 a gallon where I was. Oil was -40 a barrel through the pandemic. It peaked. That was what it bottomed out at. And the total U.S. oil consumption in 2020 was 1998 levels. So we dropped our oil consumption by about 18%. That's all it would take. An 18% cut in U.S. oil consumption would flood markets immediately, bring the Saudis, the Iranians, and the Russians to their knees. World reserve currency has the world by the balls. We don't need to sell them oil. We can bankrupt them overnight for no cost if we so choose. That's as may be, but why not take an additional leverage to that? You've got dumbasses who really think BRICS is somehow going to replace U.S. dollar. It won't, but I'm a huge fan of cut and export. The amount of geostrategic power that would give us is just incalculable. Not to mention, again, our roads are crumbling. If we stopped consuming as much oil and stopped driving as much as we did, well, we would need a lot less money to repair our roads. We could pretty much halt all new highway projects, which we should do anyway. More highways is not going to fix traffic. It never does, it never has, it never will. You could take some of that money and invest it into what I think is the most efficient form of infrastructure possible, bike paths. If you're surprised by that, you really don't know me very well. Bicycle is the ultimate vehicle of freedom. All right? Car's got to be insured, registered. You got to pay fuel taxes, toll taxes, all these other sorts of fees. You can only take it on certain roads. But a bicycle, no registration, no taxes, no insurance. You're free to go wherever the fuck you want. How American is that? No, bicycles are that's the move, man. And for cities anyway, a bicycle is infinitely more practical than a car because all it takes is a post, or you can lock up a bicycle like in the 1800s you'd have locked up a horse, a post or a bike rack or whatever. A car, you got to build all the parking for. It's just a multi-story garage, or you've got to decimate half of your downtown to build fucking parking lots, which is what Detroit has done. It's what fucking Houston did in the 70s and 80s. A bad idea. Free parking, like downtown parking lots is such a terrible use of land. Anyway. But a bike in Ohio State February isn't so free and pleasant. Okay. I hate to call you out on this one, and I will grant, very easy for me to say living in paradise. Full disclosure. One of the most popular cities for biking to work is Minneapolis, Minnesota in the United States. I'll say that again. One of the most popular cities to bike to work in the United States is Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I know full well that Minneapolis makes Ohio winters look tame. It's not about the weather, it's about the infrastructure. So I get that. And the other thing, Minneapolis, go look up. Minneapolis is one of the most popular. Dude, they have biking festivals in the snow there. Hell, there are cities in Finland. There are cities in northern Japan. There are cities in, not Russia so much, but Germany. There are cities in Scotland. These are not Denmark. These are not warm climates. These are mostly cold, gray, and dark through the winter. Now, I will grant, an Ohio winter is not easy. I have lived in Ohio, actually. Long time ago, I lived in the city of Dayton. Actually, that's where I live. That's where I went through the 2008 financial crisis. I was just a teenager then, but it's part of what shaped a lot of my identity. I lived in Dayton in 2008 to 2010. That's insane. No matter they're like, come on, I'm almost there. Their brains have been flash frozen. Nah. I'm telling you, Nate, don't diss the cyclists. Okay, look, here's the thing. Here we go. This is you're not getting the shirt off, so you haven't hit enough likes yet. But, bruh, the amount of comments I get from girls about my legs, it's so nice. The amount of money I save on not owning a car here, thousands per year. Thousands. It pays. Look, my bike has already paid for itself in the 6 months I've ridden it here. The amount of fun I have bombing down craters at 40 miles an hour here. Dude, I'm literally I have a shit-eating grin on my face when I get to work every morning. I don't need coffee. I have an adrenaline rush from bombing down a crater at 40 miles an hour in the morning. I'm telling you, bro, once you take the bike pill, and this is the one thing that pisses me off, is that bicycles have somehow been associated with political progressivism, and it's just because political progressives are interested in it for the environmental and ecological reasons, but libertarians and anyone concerned about small government should love bicycles, okay? Which is going to cost more, and we know the government will fuck up basically any project it does. It'll go over budget, and it'll go beyond schedule. Just go look at the rail project here in Hawaii to see a great example of big government gone wrong. Which is going to cost more? A rail project, a new bus line, another highway lane, or a 10-foot strip of asphalt connecting one place to another? Bike paths are so simple, even the government can't fuck them up. The only way the government can fuck them up is by not building them and not maintaining them. Maintaining a bike path is it's like 1,000th the cost of maintaining a road, because damage to road, damage to asphalt is a function of vehicle weight, and it's exponential. In other words, a bike is exponentially more damaging than a pedestrian. A car is exponentially more damaging than a bike. A truck is more exponentially damaging than a car. And of course, an 18-wheeler or a bus is exponentially more damaging than a truck. So I'm telling, and if you are a truck driver, a car driver, and you hate the amount of traffic in and around your town so much, you should be begging your local government to build bike paths, separated bike paths, as much as possible, because the only way to cure traffic is getting people out of their cars. And I promise you, from a taxpayer perspective, if that's what you care about, if you are a fiscal conservative, like in some ways I would argue I am, which costs you more as a taxpayer? Another road on that highway that won't fix traffic, I promise you it won't, induced demand is real, or again, a 10-foot strip of asphalt. Not to mention, it'll save you money on your healthcare too, because here's why, right? Let's loop this back to the Great Society for a minute. Medicaid. Who uses Medicaid? Poor people. Who often is really fat in this country? Poor people. Who could benefit from having a way to get around without a car that would also make them burn fat? Poor people. Hey, wait a minute. Come on, tell me I'm not making some sense right now. Hold up, let me cook. Let me fucking cook. Stay at the SkyTrain expansion. Nick, I feel bad for you because you live in the People's Republic of Kanakistan, but I actually think the rail here, Honolulu skyline, might be worse in terms of being a boondoggle than anything you Canadians have come up with. Like, Justin Trudeau... The rail is the Justin Trudeau of infrastructure projects. It's flashy and it looks really nice until you realize it is fucked up. I don't mind biking. I just won't go on the roads with cars. Biking on rails to Charles Pass. Exactly. So this is where government can really step up. And I know it's a slippery slope, but for the amount of it's peanuts in terms of a government budget to build more rails to Trails Pass, to build more cycling infrastructure. I mean, for God's sake, one of the places that actually does this pretty well, I don't like speaking well of them, is San Francisco and Silicon Valley. And it's part of why they've managed to take down the freeway that used to be the Embarcadero. There's a lot of car infrastructure that's been taken down in the Bay Area, but traffic hasn't gotten any worse. A large part of that is because more and more people are not getting in their cars. Now, is Bay Area traffic perfect? No, but the more people you get out of the cars and onto separated bike paths, the less traffic there is for the people who do need to use their cars. So, okay, I'll talk about this. I actually went to San Francisco on my way out here. So, for those of you who don't know, I lived in South Carolina until the end of March 2024. I moved out here in May, and in April of 2024, I drove across the country, traversing through 15 states, And I really got to see a great cross-section of the country and how it is. I went to big cities and in small country towns and national parks and everything in between. I have to call minority government. Government is less than the magic number of seats. Call majority government. Yeah, because y'all got the parliamentary system that Canada's just got all. Y'all are different. Watch Metal Leo. He shows San Francisco a lot. So, does he just show the Tenderloin District? Because the Tenderloin District is a shithole. I will agree with that. But there are parts of San Francisco that are really nice. I went down when I was there with a friend of mine. We walked around the Embarcadero. It's real nice. Chinatown. It's real nice. I didn't see certainly fewer homeless people than Honolulu. Frankly, Austin, Texas had a worse homeless problem. Giant Stadium, went around the stadium area. It was really nice too. I will say I was impressed by, I guess my expectations were very low. Again, I didn't go to the Tenderloin because I know not to go there, but it's the same reason you wouldn't go to Gary, Indiana, or fucking, I don't even know what the ghetto is in New York anymore. Fucking the entire city of Baltimore. Wharf and businesses are like gone now. So yeah, there seemed to be quite a lot of business activity, at least left in Chinatown and around the stadium. I got some damn good Chinese food. I tell you what, some damn good dim sum. Didn't get to visit Haight-Ashbury. I would have liked to, just because I know it's like watching a circus. There's a little bit of you want to see the weirdness up in person. It's like the train wreck you can't look away from. So Gary, Indiana is an unfortunate town. But it's unfortunate in a very different way than San Francisco is. I don't know. There's parts of San Francisco that I really love and parts of it that drive me fucking batty. I think really that's the case with anywhere you live. I don't think there really is one true perfection place. I will say, for my money, Honolulu, Hawaii comes damn close. Are the politics up my alley? No, not in the slightest. Is the homeless problem bad here? Absolutely. But whether that one goes without saying, the amount of good hiking I get to do here, fantastic. Which means, and I was talking about this earlier, the amount of beaches you can go to here, your entertainment is free. If you enjoy being outside here, your entertainment was, and always will be free. Hell, even your snacks, like there is a hiking trail not too far from me here, and this is okay, I'll admit this is something of a flex. There's a local trail near here that if I walk far enough deep into it, you get just these loads and loads of wild guava trees that you can pick guava as you walk along and eat it. It's just so good. Fresh wild guava off the tree. Some good shit. Never been to Hawaii, but love to see it sometime. Hey, I will say, so I've been thinking about this for a while too. I do, as you guys have seen the message up here scrolling by, life consulting and that sort of thing. Man, I'm running out of daytime. I was going to go for a walk, but I ended up getting into a really great conversation with you, Mr. Hawkins. You too there, Nick. I've been thinking about saying, life consultations. I'm doing consulting streams for life advice. You want fitness advice, like getting a diet plan, getting an exercise plan, financial advice. Again, I am financially independent. If I wanted to retire, I could do so immediately. Just don't know about their politics there. It's blue. It's liberal in the city of Honolulu. Go to any other island on the state, it's very different. And the reason I'll put it this way. Hawaii blue is closer to Midwest blue than California blue. And I'll explain what that means. You probably already know, but for those of you who don't, the major reason Hawaii is a blue state is because of labor unions that helped unionize the then sugar and pineapple industries, because conditions really did suck in sugar and pineapple plantations in the 40s and 50s, and that gave the Democratic Party a big boost in power, as it should have in those days. I mean, too blue. Okay, again, you get out of Honolulu, it's a very different feel. But I mean, you live in Ohio. Ohio's not that much redder than a Midwest blue state. It's a Midwest red state. It's certainly a lot less conservative than Indiana, but Anyway, and who cares what the politics is if you're just visiting? As far as consulting, right? So I do consultations now for advice, life advice, fitness advice. If you have a question you want to ask me, askbullmuscle@gmail.com. And I've been toying with the idea of just getting rid of my futon and just putting a full ass like queen size bed in here and just having my living room basically be a place for some people to come and like visit me, family, friends, but also in the future I could see offering the Bull Muscle life experience. You pay me a certain amount of money, you can crash at my place for a week and I can show you how I live my life, live the way of the bull. Excuse me. Throat's starting to dry out a bit. Live the way of the bull, and then hopefully apply that to your own life if you need help, or you're trying to get to where I am. Okay, for those of you who don't know, again, there's only 2 people in here. Nate, I assume you know who I am. I think I've seen you around on my channel before, so I don't feel like I need to say. All right, Tuscarawas County, Ohio. So I've been in some red counties before, man. Van Zant County, Texas, Hunt County, Texas, Aiken County, South Carolina. So let's see, Tuscarawas. That's a fun name to say. County, Ohio. Is that? Oh, I know where that is. Nice. Okay, you're not too far from. That's okay. You were on the opposite side of the state from where I lived. I lived in Dayton a long time ago. Dayton's it's doing better than it was. I visited there a couple years back, and boy, Dayton was. We moved there in 2008. My father was stationed at Wright Pat, and we left in 2010. Boy, Dayton got socked in the mouth hard by that recession. GM left, NCR left. It was not a good time. But it's on the mend. It's not doing great, but it's doing better. So I like to see that. I think in terms of property values, the Midwest is going to see a resurgence. I do believe climate change is going to damage the South a lot more than it will damage the Midwest is largely insulated from climate change. You will get the occasional tornado, but the only thing climate change is going to do is make the winters slightly less unbearable. These hurricanes are going to get stronger. They are going to continue smacking Florida really hard. I mean, there are parts of Florida where insurers are pulling out. They're saying this is uninsurable. Same thing with wildfires on the West Coast. You're seeing drier and drier seasons a lot of the time. It's going to cause some problems. I am concerned about that for my own home in South Carolina, actually. Now, I live far enough inland to where I'm not too concerned about a hurricane, but Helene knocked out a good chunk of my town. I don't think I will own my home there forever. Right now, I'm renting it out, and I'm turning a decent. I'm charging a fair price, and I'm getting a fair return. So, plus at 2.375% interest, I'd be a fool to give it up. That's a sub-inflation level loan. Why the fuck would I do that? So I have no interest in selling it any sooner than I have to, but eventually I would like to, because I don't see myself returning to South Carolina. I will say South Carolina is a great place, and Nate, I'm sure you already know that as an Ohioan, you already have an exclave of your state in Myrtle Beach. Okay, actually, you know what? I got a bone to pick with you Ohioans for a second. You are entitled to the use of the South Carolina beaches for 51 weekends a year. Okay? 51. Masters weekend. Okay? That big fucking golf tournament comes to Augusta. You'll go there. Okay? Fuck off from the beaches for that fucking weekend. That's when the locals get them. Okay? Don't want to see another goddamn Cleveland Browns flag 20 feet high planted on the Strand during fucking Masters week. You get the other 51 weeks a year, but that weekend, fuck off. All right? Oh. Again, otherwise, y'all cool. But that one weekend, I don't want to see no fucking clapped out 97 Blazer coming down to Dirty Myrtle with an Ohio, a Pennsylvania, a Michigan, or a New York license tag. Cut it the fuck out. That one weekend is ours. Yes, the Browns do suck. The Browns living up to their name once again. The factory of sadness continues to churn quite. That's the one, really, the factory of sadness is the one thing that Cleveland really still exports. So what was the Cleveland promo video? Our main export is crippling depression. Florida and Nags had better. Yeah. Okay, so, but you have money. That's the reason why. Look, the old joke is that if you have money and you live in the western half of the U.S., you come here. If you have money and you live in the western U.S. but not Hawaii money, you go to California. If you have money and you live in the eastern U.S., you go to Florida or the Caribbean. If you have money but not enough money for Florida, you go to North Carolina. If you live in the Midwest and you don't have enough money but you still want to get away for one weekend a year, you and your lower middle class working class Midwestern family will go to fucking Myrtle Beach. It's how it is. Or Hilton Head. Maybe next year as a Browns fan. I mean, I'm an A&M fan, so I can't really judge that much. Although A&M's looking good right now. Are you Ohio State? I'm guessing. Is that why you go to? Oh yeah. No, the Ohioans with money don't go to South Carolina. The Ohioans with little money tend to go to the Strand. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I will joke about it, and I will tell you to fuck off on Masters Week. Otherwise, it's chill. Because, like, all the people... Okay, so all the South Carolinians and Georgians around the Augusta metro area leave during Masters Week. Because it's... The real problem with Masters Week, and I know this firsthand, is you have the Midwestern family that wants to come down and see the Masters, and they're generally polite. They don't know where they're going, but... they'll drive about 5 miles an hour under the speed limit and try to be, generally they're pretty considerate people. They're Midwest nice, and I have no problem with the Midwesterners. Then you have the Northeasterner, the Yankee, from usually the worst three offenders here are Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York, in that order. And they also don't know where they're going. But they go 10 over the speed limit. And when you combine those two, you get a complete fucking disaster. And so the locals just know, don't stick around during Masters Week. But that's why the locals, that's the one weekend a year the locals will want to go to the beaches. And no, we don't want to deal with and honestly, this is the other thing, like on the Strand, on Ocean Boulevard, and I've never seen a Midwesterner do this. The Midwesterners are good. You stop for the pedestrians crossing the street to get to the beach. You're on Ocean Boulevard. You're right next to the beach. The only people I've seen violate this are massholes and New Jersey drivers. It's always those two. Maryland, too, because fucking I despise Maryland. But the worst ones is Massachusetts is always the worst, and then New Jersey is a close second. New York drivers are weird. Some of them are good. Almost all of those good drivers come from upstate or Western New York. But New York City drivers, Jesus Christ. Yeah, the New York City drivers, as far as I'm concerned, they're just New Jersey drivers with a different tag. Maryland drivers are horrendous. Texas drivers are fast, but generally speaking, they're pretty good. Most drivers in the South are pretty good, unless it's snowing, in which case, God help you. Just get off the road. If you get below about North Carolina, actually, no, I will include North Carolina in this. If you get below about Virginia and the weather is anywhere below about 40 degrees and you see gray clouds, get to shelter because the roads are going to be impassable in the next, 2 hours. Because Southerners, we're good at some things. Driving in the snow is not one of them. Hawaii drivers are actually really good. I will say, in general, now I've still gotten flipped off by people here, but that's because I'm a cyclist, and in this country, you're a subhuman if you're a cyclist. But in general, I think Hawaii drivers are pretty good. They're very considerate. They drive slow, but it's island. Everything goes slow here. If you're if you're expecting the fast-paced life that you like, even in urban Honolulu, it's not like other big cities. Things move slower here. It's nice. It's honestly, in that way, Hawaii is much like the South. Yeah, it's been a fun stream, but it ended up going a lot longer. I wasn't planning on streaming for 2 hours. I was originally supposed to just make that OG video, kind of the stream for how to live here on below average wage, but lo and behold, I had someone interesting come in to talk, man. Nate Hawkins, if you're not on my Discord, please, man, I'd love to have you in there. It'd be really refreshing to have your perspective, because it sounds like you've lived a lot and you've learned a lot. You said Dayton got hit. You got hit hard in 2009 and 10, made me responsible, but you're still much more responsible than the GFC. Are you in my Discord? If not, please, I would love to have you around. If not, if you don't do Discord, okay, that's fair. That's where I spend a lot of my off hours time if you ever want to chat. But if you want to stick around here, please, I hope you hit that like button. Hope you hit that little notification bell so you see where I'm live. Typically, it's 5 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time. That's if you're Ohio is Ohio's Eastern Time, so that would be 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Saturday and Sunday. Oh, but y'all are getting the daylight savings time, so it'll be 10 a.m. your time. Yeah, Hawaii does not do daylight savings time, because why the hell would we do that? It's Hawaii. There really isn't much of a time a sunlight difference. You know, the sun comes down at 6 here instead of at 7. It's midnight here. Yeah, it's late. So, all right. Well, that's going to be it for me today, y'all. I will be live again, most likely Saturday morning, as I said. Might do a consultation stream if you guys want to consult. And if you guys want to, if any of y'all watch this stream want to debate some of the points I've made, if any of y'all want to ask a question, again, askbullmuscle@gmail.com for consultation. Otherwise, until next time, make good decisions. Those good decisions form your habits. Those habits form your values. Those values form an ethos to be the guide star through the rough waters of life. Much love, y'all. Come in for the hug. All right, shoots. See y'all later.